Your turn. Colorado took college football by storm in Deion Sanders' first year as head coach before it came crashing down to reality. Now the question is, can they build on last year and become a powerhouse in the Big 12 as the school returns to the conference for the first time since 2010? Coach Prime knows there's high expectations.
Do you feel an obligation with whom you are to perform at a higher level or coach at a higher level?
Yeah, yes, I'm judged on a different scale. My wins are totally different than your wins. Your wins, you just judge in football. That's why I have to start out and give you education and academics and so forth. I have to give you those things so you understand there's a greater scope. I can't win 9 games and our GPA suffers. Our GPA can't be high, but we lose another 8 games. We can't not go and grab high school players and you got a bunch of guys in the portal, out of the portal that's getting incarcerated. My wins are different. We have to win in every area. That's the way we're judged. And I'm cool with that because we come a little different.
Okay. Prime time, like Deion. That's my guy. Bart Scott.
My guy, too.
Good to have you with
teammate.
But we need to have a real conversation, all right? We need to have I have a lot of questions. Is Shedeur really a number one? Is Coach Prime the type of coach that we really thought he was? And what is this Colorado team going to do? So I'll start with you, Harry. How competitive are they really going to be in the Big 12? We know they've been hitting the transfer portal hard.
I think it all depends on their offensive line. And they're going to start 5 new offensive linemen this season. And there's a reason for that. When you look at last year in Shedeur Sanders, he was sacked 52 times. That was more than anybody, or tied for first with anyone in FBS. That's atrocious. That's horrendous. I don't even know how Shedeur Sanders finished the season being sacked that amount of times. But also, you know, when you look at them offensively, Pat Shermer is now their offensive coordinator. Yeah. He took over late in the year. And it's hard at the collegiate level to implement, you know, your teachings and what you really want to do with this offense, protections, and the whole 9. So he's going to come in, has a full off season to be able to implement his things. Do we need to max protect? Do we need to change this when you see this blitz and that whole 9? So that's going to be different in my opinion. But also, I can't ignore the fact that defensively they were horrible as well.
Yeah.
They were in the bottom 3 in the Pac-12 in every category.
Was that players or is that coaching? What was that?
Well, I think it's a mixture of all of it.
Yeah.
I can't just put it on players. I can't just pinpoint it on coaches. But I think collectively it had to do with everything that was going on at Colorado. But I think it's going to be different this season, bringing in a guy like Warren Sapp, right, who played on the defensive line, who's a Super Bowl champion, brings that energy, brings something different to the table that these kids can relate to.
Yeah.
Is going to make a difference. But also 43 transfers.
Yeah, that's
43 transfers that they have in. So if things aren't good, if you're horrible offensive line-wise, if you're horrible on defense, then we got to get some people the hell up out of here. We got to bring some new people in so we can have a chance.
I think bringing Sapp's going to be huge, but I just got to say one more thing when we come to you. When you say 43 players, right, bringing in 40.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That is so challenging in terms of chemistry for football.
Yeah, continuity, right, is important, especially when you're trying to explain things to young kids who don't really understand, don't have the football acumen. You know, Warren Sapp's going to be sitting there talking about sitting on double teams. Yeah, holding up double teams, holding the jump throughs. These are all professional concepts that you're asking a bunch of kids that may be coming from other schemes to figure out. Because certain places, they say, okay, our outside arm free. Some people say we're a spill team, right? Depending on how you take on blocks, how you take on running backs or things coming to you.
Same foot, same shoulder.
Yeah, all that type of stuff. And that's different. That's a lot to do. You know, but I think, you know, bringing in Sherman, what they need is continuity. And this whole NIL deal type of environment that we have, it creates this type of chaos, right? Because you're assuming that you're bringing in guys that understand the philosophies and the concepts. And that's the hardest thing to teach, not just the why, but the what, why we do things. That's the hard part to get through. And they don't have the practice time that professionals have to sit through the meetings, have the walkthrough, go to practice, come back, watch the film. And so it's going to be hard. But, you know, the good thing is they're not in a conference that I think is murderer's row.
That's the point
there.
there.
So they're not going against a lot. But to me, less of Shedeur Sanders is more. This can't be about the Shedeur Sanders going #1 overall. This can't be about him trying to win a Heisman. This has to be about him protecting that defense, right? Because you talk about last year, you know, he was pressured, you know, 40% of his dropbacks, you know, 223 pressures, but also they only averaged 2.3 yards rushing the football. So you talk about dropping back, trying to, center everything around Shedeur.
Yeah.
Less is more sometimes because you need a balanced run game. And if anybody understands that, a guy like Deion Sanders understands how important balance is. Because if you become one of these drop back type of teams, you're going to put Shedeur at risk. And he should have filed charges last year for all the assaults.
Exactly. Before he can protect that defense, they have to protect him.
Oh, 100%.
But that's how you
the
protect
offensive line is
too.
the number one thing, but you talked about the conference in the Big 12. What's great for Colorado is that you have a Texas and an Oklahoma now moving to the SEC.
No one here's mentioned Phil Lodeholt, who's the offensive line coach for this team now, someone who played 7 seasons in the NFL for the Minnesota Vikings. I think the misconception with Colorado last year was like the offensive line was an issue, was that they were small. That's not true. Right. They had 2 guys that were over 6'8", 300 pounds.
Yep.
The transfer portal, the recruiting, Jordan Seaton, top offensive tackles in the country, the back and forth. Is he going to Tennessee? Is he going to Colorado? Ends up signing that big NIL deal to go to Colorado. Yakiri Walker, Tyler Johnston, Justin Mayers, they have bodies.
Right.
It's a different look in the trenches for Colorado this year. I just wonder, can you get the production from your run game that you didn't get last year? Because that was 3 yards a carry. That's the offensive line, but that's also less than that. 1,600 yards combined from all of your receivers. You have playmakers, but everything starts up front. And for Pat Shurmur, we all love how Deion has constructed this coaching staff. You have former NFL players, former NFL coaches. The melding of the minds here, I wonder sometimes, is it going to be too many cooks? Yeah. Because we saw little bits and pieces of that last year. I like that Deion was in the CEO role. Yep. He always had the mic up, so he's not on the headset meddling, letting your coaches do their job. You now have a year of experience, going 4-8 last year. You've weeded out some of the issues within this team. You brought in talent. You let some talent go. Is it going to be the right fit to make sure that your Travis Hunter can excel? Also, can he stay healthy too? And same thing with Shedeur.
But it's a good point, because with too many voices, it can be paralysis by overanalysis. But here's what I want to know from you. Listen, this team was Hollywood. We had First Take live from Colorado. It was must-see, Deion, the shades, the whole deal. No one puts on a bigger show than Deion and his son. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. What does Shedeur need to prove to be a number 1 pick like Deion is projecting in the 2025 draft? And what does Deion need to prove as a head coach?
Well, he has to prove that he can seal the deal, right? It was nice what they were able to do the first 4 games of the season. They captivated us with what they did with beating TCU. They had our attention. Yeah. But when they start losing, you start seeing the celebrities not showing up, because you at the end of the day, and Deion understands this, right? He has the spotlight on him. What are you going to do once you have it, right? And that only comes with wins and losses. Even if they run the table and win the Big 12 with the strength of schedule, I don't know if that would even be enough to get them in the playoffs, right? Because, so they're going to have to win and win impressively. And then ultimately, that's what Deion is going to be judged on. Now, we understand that he came in, brought in all the transfers, trying to get his philosophy, weed out the bad apples. But now we're going to start looking for results. So I think we're going to have to see a significant
But is it fair to judge him because he's not at one of the top programs?
Well, I think because he is who he is and he has the ability to get guys on commercials, get them NIL deals, he's a great salesman, that we should judge him, because with the NIL deals now, I don't think it's about Alabama. I think that's why Saban left, because he's like, man, listen, I can't make all this money that everybody's making. I don't want to have to re-recruit my players every year. You look at Ugalele, he's on his like 3rd, 4th, 5th team, right? You got to re-recruit your own guys in this environment. And Deion's a great salesman, but at some point it has to be the substance. We have to get the results. And Deion's going to have to make sure that he can seal the deal by wins. And it can't be about Shedeur. It has to be about the team, and that may be about running the football.
We have to go to break. I just have to say one thing. I want to see players get paid, get taken care of, be able to take care of their families, especially ones that aren't going to be able to go to the next level. But college sports are just a mess right now.
Yeah.
It's an absolute mess, and that's exactly why Nick Saban doesn't want to do it.
It's going to one or two extremes, right? We had too much regulation. Now we don't have enough.
Yeah.